So I guess there's just this misconception that feminists are angry at men, and I think a lot of people took that like personally, and it then created this big like hurt feeling and this like huge misconception. But I think that would be like the key thing to recognize, and that it's not a hatred of men in any way, shape, or form.
I had this stark realization one day that I do identify as a girl, and because of that, I'm not treated the way I should be or the way I would like to be. So once I had like come to terms with that, it was just a matter of saying, well, it was just a matter of like identifying my beliefs, like I have equal rights, or I should be treated in a way that doesn't seem disrespectful or make assumptions about who I am. And then essentially I came up with my own feminist manifesto, and then I realized that it was actually a movement, so I just decided to support it like in any way that I can.
And when like I was explained the movement, I was like, I don't understand why everyone isn't a feminist. Like, it's just equality between the sexes. So I was like, okay, so I'm a feminist.
As a person of color and a female, the intersectionality of that has really impacted me over the course of my life, and I've always been interested in the depolarization of sexual agency. So my decision to remain a virgin is no different or less valid than someone's decision to have sex or to be sexually active, and it's no longer binary.
I just heard a lot of people at the school talking about it, so that I looked it up. I was like, I guess I am a feminist, and then went on from there.
I think it's mostly just because people don't get the meaning of feminism. That feminism is equality. That feminism isn't like women rising over men or women taking over or like women are so much better. It's just like there's a vast inequality right now, and it needs to be corrected, and people just don't get it.
Anytime people who are being oppressed or slighted socially, physically, economically decide to take a stand, the feeling of threatening something that has become so big and has developed over such a long period of time is intimidating.
I guess there's like this idea that feminists are like these big aggressive women that like hate men, but it's not. It's like it's not just women for the first part. They don't hate men. It's the hatred of the patriarchy, which is the system.
One word, patriarchy.
And with that intimidation, people can sometimes come up with reasons not to take a stand, not to become involved, or to object to being stood against. And that alone has made feminism seem kind of like a man-hating movement rather than a humanity-promoting movement.
Just like start small, like just talk to people. Like that's how I guess I became a feminist, sort of. Like if someone sort of just like brings up, talk about your beliefs and your ideals, and like if you discuss it with people, then they seem to understand it better than just like even just reading on the internet, which can be helpful certain places on the internet, but like talking to actual people can create so much more understanding, and communication is seriously key to like creating a sense of empathy and understanding.
Because the insistence that sexual divides and gender divisions are not real is one of the greatest threats to the feminist movement and movements of humanity the world over, and in addition to that, not saying anything can almost be as dangerous as saying something offensive.
Like teaching people the actual meaning of feminism, I'm sure a lot more people would become feminist if they knew what it truly was, and it didn't have that like negative connotation that it's now associated with.
I think that sometimes we ignore issues like race or class and issues of intersectionality like that. So that could be one thing if we were to have speakers and to talk about more broad feminist issues.
When someone decides not to take a stand, when someone decides not to involve themselves in a movement that can do nothing but better their life and better the lives around them, then they become part of the problem. And if people decide not only to speak out, but to speak with information, to be armed with a vocabulary that strengthens their ideas and fortifies their convictions, then I feel like the feminist movement has nothing but good things ahead of it.
Just by talking to them. And I feel like anyone can become involved in whatever way that means with feminism. Just talking to a friend, like giving them a link to a website or a cool video that you saw, even just small things that it can build up.
I wore my t-shirt, it's Feminist, it's just straight up Feminist, to a concert, and I got a lot of catcalls and a lot of boos and a lot of like really, really negative comments, like really, really bad comments, just based off my t-shirt. But I also got some applause. Someone asked me to take a picture for a vlog, so that was pretty cool. But like, that's how I learned the negative connotation associated with it, because everyone was like, oh, gross, you're a feminist.
The ways to educate people who are not involved in feminism is to first of all figure out who's not listening, who's not interested in listening, and why. Answering those 3 questions is provocative in itself, and especially at Andover, people like to be provoked. They like to have their ideas tried and challenged if it means sharpening them. Iron sharpens iron, and in that sense, if the students at this school, if we find out which students don't want to hear about feminism and figure out why feminism is not just a movement, but it's their movement, it is something they need to take ownership of, then I think that we'll do a much better job of kind of spreading the education.